So good afternoon all. Welcome to here ETRAC Project final webinar. My name is Helena Puhakka-Tarvainen. I'm the coordinator of this project from Karelia University of Applied Sciences, Joensuu, Finland. There's online my colleagues, both from Karelia, but then University of Lapland and University of Highlands and Islands, Scotland. So we are recording this webinar because this summarizes all the project outcome, and the recording will be shared publicly afterwards on the project website and on our e-service. So what was ETRAC project about? ETRAC means ethical tourism recovery in Arctic communities. This has been a 1 year project for continuing the work of previous 4 projects. The project has been funded from the Northern Periphery and Arctic program. So we have had a common challenge of peripherality. Partners and stakeholders from these NPA projects are coming from Scandinavia, UK, Ireland, Iceland, Greenland, even Canada. So the sparse population, quite low economy, and similar challenges are in common in these projects. ETRAC has combined 4 previous projects, of which I was leading earlier, project about women entrepreneurship, W Power. Then there was another project called Shape, which was all about working with biosphere reserves across the NPA area. Project Artisan has been about sensitive tourism in Arctic, cultural sensitivity, and then Saint project has been all about slow adventure. We have been working together with local SMEs, communities, and other stakeholders to help them to diversify businesses, work collaboratively, acquire new skills, and plan new, more sustainable tourism streams. The background theme for this project has been the decrease of tourism sector by COVID, but also the possibilities what the COVID can cause in a sense of changing the attitude towards tourism business to make it more sustainable, and also the clients might appreciate the new, more sustainable approach. We have created, our main outcomes are a so-called e-service. We will look at a bit later on. We have created jointly with our stakeholders a strategy for ethical and sustainable tourism recovery post-COVID. And we have had really nice stakeholder network across the Northern Periphery and Arctic. So in our stakeholder network, there is far more than 100 stakeholders from all the sectors of tourism business. And nicely, many of you are also online today. So that has been ETRAC about. If you wish to hear more about the project itself, you can find the website etrac.interreg-npa.eu or contact any of us project partners. So the program for today is that we will check the outcome and results of the project one by one in the next around 30 minutes. And after that, we will have a closing discussion and time for questions in the end. So I will give floor to my colleague Bobby from Scotland, and you will tell about the strategy mentioned a minute ago. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helena. I'm going to speak today about the report and the strategy document that we developed as part of this project. We undertook a number of different research methods to really try and understand what the impact of COVID has been on the tourism industry, and what an ethical recovery from COVID really looks like. So that's really what I'm going to speak about in these few slides. In terms of the impact on of COVID on SMEs of tourism businesses in the region, there are a number of different impacts. The first and kind of most pronounced being the shift in the types of clients that really made up the people, the tourists, the people undertaking these activities and these products. Due to international travel restrictions, there was a huge reduction in the number of international customers, and a big increase in the number of domestic customers, for fairly obvious reasons, in that people couldn't get in or out of the country, and so the domestic tourist market really did increase as the international one reduced. There's also new what's been called new types of tourists. So people who perhaps, especially when it came to the outdoors and in terms of kind of nature-based tourism, people who are not necessarily used to that, people who were not your traditional walkers or hikers or campers, going out into the outdoors for the first time. And there's a noticeable impact of that, of people perhaps not having the awareness or education or conduct that may be expected in such situations. Along with that, as I say, that there was a shift to more outdoor and nature-based tourism. This is partly because it was safer for COVID reasons to be outdoors and distanced from one another, but also because with people stuck indoors all the time, there's actually a greater demand for nature, to get out into nature, because of the nature of, because of the effect of being locked up, I suppose, or locked down in people's houses, especially in cities. This also meant a changing activities and priorities for tourism providers, in terms of there's a shift from maybe more communal accommodation in hostels or in hotels to more self-catering, just to be safer and away from other people. And different activities in terms of wanting to be outside or distanced, which might have to change people's offerings in the tourism market. The uncertainty with lockdowns and what was possible was a big impact on businesses, and really also in the recruitment of people to work in the industry. Initially, a lot of people lost their jobs in the tourism industry, and then recruiting them back into what was an uncertain and often low-paid industry was particularly challenging, and remains challenging today. For fairly obvious reasons, there was a very large increase in digital online activity, with tourism products being delivered, innovations in product offerings to be delivered online, and training being developed for this digital offering, but also for other tourism elements, and also networking, international networking offered for other tourism businesses that were in a similar situation to this. And this was all, especially on the product side, it was very much that people could either travel to the region and engage with some of these offerings online, or there's this concept of being a tourist from your own living room, and actually exploring as widely as possible through your computer new places and new experiences and new things to do in that sense. In terms of the impacts on different demographics, it tended to be young people and women who were hit the hardest within the industry in terms of the effects of COVID. Young people tended to be on insecure or low-paid contracts, and were often the first ones to leave the hospitality industry. And women tend to be more in service industries and also tended to be the primary caregivers. So when the kids were off school, then it may have been them who took who took the responsibility for looking after them. And then impacts, but also ongoing impacts about accommodation challenges in communities and for tourism employees. And this relates to the changing activities that I said above in terms of people moving from hotel accommodation into self-catering for the safety, for the convenience, because this shift with the kind of Airbnb generation, and accommodation which used to be there for local people or for cheap accommodation for tourism or hospitality employees is now no longer there. And serious impact, both in terms of ethical community-focused tourism, but also in terms of recruitment challenges within the sector. Next slide there, please, Kendra. You're fine.
Sorry, it's not moving on.
Oh.
This one. Oh, sorry.
I can just speak through the next wee bit, which is about recovery.
I'll get it, don't worry, but carry on.
I'll carry on. In terms of the recovery then, there we go. There was perceived to be, I suppose, a kind of a partial recovery so far. Bearing in mind that this survey and a lot of this data collection was done in January, February, when really there were at least partial lockdowns in much of the region, and there was still uncertainty as to how COVID restrictions would continue. There was still uncertainty regarding future planning and kind of business planning in that sense. There was a perception that significant ongoing support beyond restrictions was required in terms of the financial sustainability of businesses. So this was in direct financial support, but then also in training and networking, perhaps more within the sector rather than direct government support in that sense. Within the recovery, there was also a commitment to maintain that focus on the domestic market. And once people had been traveling and become aware of opportunities within their own country, there's an attempt to continue to attract them there and really not just offer experiences to foreign tourists, but also really try and keep that domestic market there. Within that recovery as well, there was a lot of kind of rethinking of the approach towards more community-focused and ethical tourism, really trying to benefit communities that these tourist experiences are offered in, and engage the communities in perhaps more cultural focused tourism, and then also develop and strengthen partnerships in terms of really trying to collaborate around place-based approaches, bring in different actors, businesses, infrastructure, destination management organizations to really bring people together for a whole kind of area approach to sustainable tourism in each of these regions. Next slide there, please. The last bit of this work was really trying to put together a future strategy and practical actions that could be taken to implement some of these things and to really try and whether mitigate the impact or build on this kind of not only recovery to get back to how it was before, but really develop into a much stronger, more resilient ethical tourism industry. And there was 4 main pillars of this strategy. The first being continued network development. So this is peer-to-peer among businesses, but also multi-sectoral, so among various DMOs and governments and other actors, and maintain it transnationally as well in terms of building on this digital connectivity to really recognize that some of these conversations are going on across the Northern Periphery and Arctic region, but also are relevant to build upon in terms of learnings and in terms of network development. To encourage more national focused policy and infrastructure. Infrastructure may come in for example, in high-speed internet provision, so that these kind of digital innovations are possible throughout the region, but also maybe a policy or at least a national DMO approach to things like accommodation provision and to things like recruitment within the sector, which really affect many places and require a much more strategic overview approach to their development. A much more focused effort on changing tourist behaviour in terms of education, in terms of dispersal from the hotspots of tourism, to actually disperse, not only to make those hotspots more sustainable and not overloaded with tourists, but also to benefit other areas as well with the money and the opportunities that tourism brings there. And then also for the industry to develop these new ethical tourism products so that people who are more discerning or ethical in their approach to tourism can actually have a place where they can go and they have that possibility of doing tourism in a different way. And then finally, as I mentioned before, there's far more focus on a local strategic approach and really focusing in between businesses and the local community, the resident community, to coordinate with other stakeholders so that tourism does not negatively affect the communities that it's in, and that the communities can benefit from it and have a real say in what they want and how they can also benefit the so that was really the impacts and the recovery and the strategy emerging from that work. And if anyone has any questions, then I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Bobby. It seems that there's no questions at this point. We can continue the discussion in the end of the session. So the first outcome, the strategy was very, how do you say, created in cooperation with the stakeholders. But the second outcome, e-service, is meant for everybody, but it has been more, it is more like a collection of previous developments and a platform for future developments in the Northern Periphery and Arctic regions. So this slide summarizes what the e-service includes. So it's both for tourism entrepreneurs and developers. There are tools for open innovation for developers and training materials for entrepreneurs. Key concepts include adventure tourism, cultural sensitivity, slow adventure, and responsible tourism. And as said, this is also like a platform for future developments. Let's first see a short online guided tour video about the portal, and then I will go in details. So thanks, Kendra, if you can share the video.
Introduce you to the Shaping Ethical Tourism platform, which is dedicated to open innovation and training. This video has been produced by the project Ethical Tourism Recovery in Arctic Communities. The aim of ETRAC is to enable short-term business recovery while exploring options for a more culturally and locally sensitive tourism future. COVID-19 is having a profound effect on the tourism sector in the cool north, and as the industry starts to move into a resilient post-pandemic recovery, there is an opportunity to look at more sustainable or responsible tourist behavior and address sustainability challenges in peripheral and Arctic areas that have been intensified by the pandemic. Ethical tourism means tourism that has been developed and practiced with respect to local communities and one that benefits local people as widely as possible. Ethical tourism is being presented in the materials of the platform through these following key concepts and themes: responsible tourism, cultural sensitivity, adventure tourism, and slow adventure. Now, let's have a look at the platform shapingethical.tourism.eu. This platform collects tools and training materials for ethical tourism and is directed at you operating as a tourism developer or a tourism entrepreneur. For tourism developers, you can find from here an Open Innovation Supports catalog. This catalog presents the available business supports tools. These methods and materials have been developed during the EU's Northern Periphery and Arctic Programme 2014 and 20 and are based on open access information and stakeholder collaborations. They aim to provide a full package of support to end users involved in post-COVID tourism recovery. You can also study the findings of the ETRAC project or get to know the future development projects. And for SMEs, we have gathered materials for developing business and links to existing online training materials here. For example, if you're an entrepreneur wishing to learn more on cultural sensitivity, you can find an online self-study course for that from here. The materials of this platform have been produced by 4 previous MPA projects: Artisan, Shape, Saint, and W Power. You can find more information about these projects by following the links. In addition to the innovation and training resources, you can find relevant news, events, and case study examples while scrolling down the homepage. If you're interested in participating in the forthcoming projects, please check out the future projects from here. We thank you for your interest and hope that this platform is helpful in your efforts towards recovery from COVID and more ethical tourism. Be part of it, it's our future. ETRAC, Ethical Tourism Recovery in Arctic Communities.
Thank you, Kendra, for sharing the video, and thank you, my colleagues from Lapland University who have created such a great outcome. The video is available on the front page of the e-service itself, and now I'm aiming to share the screen. Wait a second. So indeed, this is the close the window. So this is the portal or e-service, how you just would like to name it. So the address is shapingethical.tourism.eu. So that's the most important thing to remember. As seen in the front page, there is the link to the online guided tour, the video we saw recently. The key concepts are described here in the front page, and by clicking the links you can go deeper on those. And then there are some links, direct links also to the contents. The map in the front page shows the region where we are. So Finland, Sweden, Norway, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Ireland, Faroe Islands, Iceland, Greenland, Canada, Svalbard. And for example, in the cultural sensitive tourist project Artisan, there were also partners from other parts of the world, like from New Zealand. So the ethical tourism community is global. Also, the past NPA projects behind this ETRAC initiative have been mentioned here. as was shown also in the video. This is the news section. So, for example, the previous webinar, Responsible Marketing, has a short description about the contents and key findings behind this link. Also, there is a recent news about Summit Parliament in Finland, which has published Responsible Summit Tourism Visitor Guidance a few weeks ago. In this section, ETRAC, which kind of events or webinars are to be organized, and also the case studies mentioned before, contact details, and also the social media of partners. Up of the page, there are three sections. First one shows the contact details. So you can meet the ETRAC project team in each institute. There is also a link to the program webpage and also links to the previous projects. For developer, the Open Innovation Support Catalog is the collection of tools to support the development of tourism sector. Sorry, the internet connection is a bit slow. So this matrix summarizes all the contents we have here on the website, and it also has the upload button. Unfortunately, this is yet in Finnish as the operator of this website is in Finland. We will correct that one. Always find some adjustments. Open Innovation Support Catalog includes, for example, a process description of cross-evaluation between projects, or peer-to-peer mentoring scheme model, or series of recorded webinars, roadmap to cultural sensitive tourism business, and so on. This section also includes, for example, the insights of the past webinars. This summary includes the insights of the webinar of ethics of Arctic tourism. For example, and then there is a section for the NPA Bridging project. It means that there are also other short projects now in the transition of the two funding periods. So the Northern Peripheral Program, Arctic Program 2014-2020 has been closed, and the new program NPA 21 to 27 is starting. And in this transition, there are so-called bridging projects, which are other initiatives in the tourism sector, which include, for example, GLOW, which is about darkness tourism, and Tourism 360, which is about circular tourism approach. You will hear a bit more about that later on by my colleague, Steve. And then there is the link for the new NPA program, and later on this section will have more links for the new initiatives. Then the part for tourism entrepreneurs, there is a similar matrix about the resources which this portal includes. For example, a review of the new technology to promote slow adventures. There is, for example, publication about how to create and narrate a slow adventure tourism product. There is a benchmarking kit, toolkit for understanding cultural sensitivity in tourism, and so on. And then the trainings have been also listed one by one. And I will show a bit more details. So this is about cultural sensitivity. There are course descriptions, what they include. similar, for example, with responsible tourism. It seems that the afternoon internet is very busy. So there is, for example, a slideshow for responsible tourism done by my colleague Tarja. In the end of this section, there are also a few working templates very suitable for SMEs. There is, for example, a tailored business model canvas, and there is a template for developing cultural sensitive tourist products and services. So this is a portal, and as you see, there are small bugs like this kind of visual things need still to be corrected, but we have a few weeks project time left, so we can fix it all. Do you have any questions related to the portal at the moment? Most importantly, remember the website shapingethicaltourism.eu. If no questions, I will next give the turn to my colleague Monica from Lapland.
Okay, hello to everybody from my part also. I'm Monika Lytie from the University of Lapland, and I was responsible for the work package T3 together with Wilhelmina Vainikka. And this work package focused on expanding the network for ethical tourism recovery and the reach of the project outputs, and at the same time also the reach of the previous 4 projects that are clustering in this project. So concerning the expanding and maintaining also the stakeholder network, which was like coming from the previous projects, here is a little bit of calculations. There was about 1/3 of organizations or stakeholders coming from the previous projects that followed to this new project, and then 2/3 of organizations participating in ETRAC activities were new. So that we really succeeded in expanding the network. Kendra, could you please show the next slide, please? Thank you. So here a little bit more exactly maybe. So that 66 new organizations participated in ETRAC activities compared to the previous projects, Artisan, Saint, Shape, and W Power. And the biggest stakeholder groups in the network are for the moment SMEs and higher education and research institutions, so like universities and universities of applied sciences. And then we organized 4 webinars. Helena already showed a little bit. In total, 233 people participated in the webinars, and quite many participated several times or in several webinars, 83 participants in total, unique participants. And as Helena already mentioned, our network is quite global, so we had participants from 20 countries. And as you can see, there were thematic webinars, 4 of them, and the most popular was the second one in February about responsible marketing, and the next most popular was ethics of Arctic tourism. The first one was the smallest one, but that was a little bit maybe too soon after starting the project, that we didn't have that much time to market it, as well as the last one was also, we had so many events that it was not that much marketed, but to sum up, I think that we had quite a lot of a satisfying number of participants in each of the webinars. Next slide, please, Kendra. And some further observations from the webinars. So our own evaluation is that we succeeded in organizing all the 4 interesting topics and speakers, and we attracted, as already said, a transnational audience, both repeat participants and one-timers. And each webinar included vivid discussions, and the webinars were also a good way to promote ETRAC project outputs to the target groups of the project. And we also made blog posts on the webinar presentations and also videos that you can find through the shapingethicaltourism.eu portal, or from the project website, or from the project YouTube channel as well. And the challenge was to find suitable dates and times for the webinars and stand out from the abundant supply of webinars on the internet, and maybe also for future reflections, and that how we could still more expand and maintain the network in what ways and channels. So we were using like direct emailing now, and also social media and the websites for this. Then we organized the ethical tourism networking event, which was a 2-day event as a speed date format. And we had 24 registered participants from 11 countries. And they booked or scheduled 33 meetings, but finally only 9 of those took place for various reasons. And a little bit more, like there were 2 persons in these 24 registered participants, 2 from DMOs, 6 from SMEs, 1 public authority, and then 5 higher education and research institutions, plus project partner institutions, and 1 training center or school represented in the registered participants. Next slide, please, Kendra. And some observations from the networking event. It was good that it was a 2-day event, so people had the possibility to reschedule, because everybody is so busy. So there were a lot of cancellations and reschedulings, but for example, for technical reasons, or the scheduled meetings didn't take place. For example, I myself fell ill, and I was the first day ill and couldn't have my meetings, and I happened to succeeded in rescheduling some of them for the next day. So it was good that it was a 2-day event. And mostly the event attracted experts and entrepreneurs and some developers, and we got good feedback on the usefulness of the event. But it was a challenging format, transnational and online and speed dating. So it was maybe it was an experiment to organize it. And I think the experiences were that good that this could be like further developed and used in other projects. And the challenge is how to attract more entrepreneurs and tourism developers. Experts maybe were more familiar or more comfortable with this kind of format and more used to speed date online transnationally. And maybe there could be some names told in the marketing already that these experts will be participating, and you can schedule a meeting with them that maybe could attract more participants in this kind of events. And maybe there could be several networking events during a project, so that there could be that would maybe foster more networking and like meeting others several times one-to-one. Or maybe the event could be also longer, like 4 or 5 days, because you need some training or like experimenting with it before you understand what it is about. And then maybe you are enthusiastic to schedule more meetings, but the event is already over. So it takes some time to like understand what it is. Next slide, please, Kendra. Then we organized an online Maviomi, which is a Canadian concept from our partner in New Brunswick, Canada, Women in Business New Brunswick. They have been organizing for Indigenous tourism, Indigenous women entrepreneurs online meetings monthly, and they wanted to experiment by organizing a meeting to Indigenous women entrepreneurs also in other countries. And we had in total 11 participants, which was quite a lot, good number for a small meeting. It was not even meant to be a large meeting. And we had 8 persons participating from Canada, 2 from Sweden and 1 from Finland, including us project staff. And most of the participants were indigenous, so Sami and Mi'kmaq from Canada. We had vivid discussion and exchange of experiences during the meeting. And the question is how to continue to maintain the contacts that were created during the meeting, and how to invite more indigenous women to join this kind of networking and network. I think I felt myself that the meeting was quite empowering, and it was very interesting to see how shared experiences the women entrepreneurs had across the Atlantic. And the scheduling of the meeting was perhaps not optimal. We had to reschedule it first because of one of the organizers fell ill, had COVID, and then the new scheduled time at the end of May, I didn't know beforehand, but just learned before the meeting that in Finnish Lapland there was at the same time for Sami women handicraft makers a local handicraft event, and that was maybe a reason that we didn't have participants from Finnish Lapland. And also that it's a carving season for reindeer at the same time, which may also be one reason that there was not so many participants. Next slide, please, Kendra. You can just put them all. Actually, these we have already a little bit discussed already. I mentioned already that we have these blog posts and videos on the webinar presentations. And then we have this video, a virtual guided tour of the Shaping Ethical Tourism platform in video format that Helena already showed. And then we have organized also virtual guided tours of the platform with a personal guide. And so far we have organized 7 of these tours. And if you are interested to have your own personal tour, you just need to contact us and book your tour. We are available as guides for that. Thank you for attention. And then is it Helena again?
Yes, it's myself and my colleague Steve from Scotland. So as mentioned already a few times, this project runs until this month, end of this month only, but we have already many initiatives how to continue this important topic in the coming years and in the context of the Northern Periphery and Arctic program. Indeed, this new NPA program gives possibilities for future development in transnational cooperation with partners with similar challenges. In fact, our project team was in Copenhagen a few weeks back in a very nice program event, meeting colleagues from other countries, first time since almost 3 years. And it was very useful, go creative event with new ideas. And also we, as project partners, had a chance to meet first time face to face. So in that sense, this project has also been very ethical, as we haven't been traveling much during the project, mostly worked online due to COVID. Monica mentioned the living stakeholder network is existing and hopefully it remains, and we hope to get new tools to maintain that network and collaboration also in the future. And the e-service presented will be kept updated and will work also as a platform for sharing invitations to future events. So maybe Steve, you would like to share a few ideas about the coming initiatives related to ETRAC and T360. Floor is yours.
Sure, thanks, Helena. Yeah, so basically T360 is we're short for Tourism 360, and it's a short 6-month project that is also coming to an end. that is exploring the potential of circular tourism and regenerative tourism for a main project through the Northern Periphery and Arctic program. So the intention really is to combine the material and the partnerships for both ETRAC and T360 into one big project where we will look at circular tourism and regenerative tourism and the strong sort of ethical elements related to both those and other things that we've learnt in ETRAC, and do things like undertaking pilot studies, looking at training needs of SMEs, and also thinking about ways we can actually measure the success of tourism that isn't so reliant upon the bottom line, the dollar. So yes, due to the problems associated with Brexit and Scotland's well, let's call it ejection from the EU, we are facing a few difficulties in getting a project started. We would have liked to have applied for money this June, but I think we're going to have to wait a year really, which is a shame because we will lose some momentum. But we have a strong partnership. We also have partners involved and interested in Iceland, Sweden, Ireland, and Norway. So I think we can do a really interesting 3-year project that has ethical tourism at its heart. And hopefully this time next year, we will be pulling all of that together, all the lessons that we've learned from T360 and ETRAC into a major application to the Northern Periphery and Arctic program. Thanks, Anna.
Yeah, thank you, Steve, very much. Do you have any questions of any content during this session? I can't hear anybody. I think something was flashing, but maybe we can even now stop the recording so the discussion would be more confidential.